Hello, everyone. In our last class, we saw how the National Assembly took that huge step of getting rid of the old feudal system. But once the special privileges of the nobles were gone, a new, very big question came up. What about the king? So, how do you control a king who believes he has unlimited power? Let's find out. So, after that historic night of August 4th, 1789, the National Assembly had a new puzzle on its hands. You see, King Louis XVI was still the king, and for hundreds of years, French kings had held absolute power. Dealing with this was their next big challenge. I want you to just think about this for a second. The entire old system of society was gone. But how do you control a monarch who believes his power is a divine right? How do you make a king follow rules when, for his entire life, he was the one making the rules? This was the main problem the revolutionaries had to solve. The answer they came up with was a powerful new idea for France, a constitution. So in 1791, after a lot of discussion, the National Assembly finished writing this new rule book for the country. Its main purpose, you see, wasn't to get rid of the king, but to create a set of rules that even the king had to follow. So, what exactly is a constitution? Well, you can think of it like a rule book for a game. It doesn't matter who you are, even the most powerful player has to follow the rules, right? In the same way, a constitution is a set of written rules that the government has to obey, and its most important job is to limit the power of the rulers, to make sure no one person becomes too powerful. And that was the main goal of this new Constitution of 1791, to make sure that all the power of the government was not in the hands of just one person. The revolutionaries were very, very clear. They did not want to go back to the days of absolute monarchy under King Louis XVI. So how did they do it? Well, they used an idea from some of the great thinkers of that time, like Montesquieu. The idea was simple but brilliant. Separate the government's power into 3 different branches. One branch to make the laws, another to carry out the laws, and a third one to interpret the laws. This way, no single branch could become all-powerful. Okay, now this chart here shows the whole master plan for the new government. It might look a little complicated at first glance, but don't worry, let's break it down into its 3 main parts, step by step. Okay, so here are the 3 branches. First, you have the legislature. Its job was to make the laws, and this power was given to the National Assembly. Second, there's the executive. Its job was to enforce the laws, and this was the role of the king and his ministers. And third, we have the judiciary, the judges, who would interpret the laws. You can think of it like your school. The student council, like the National Assembly, might make new school rules. The principal, like the king, has to make sure everyone follows those rules, and a discipline committee, like the judiciary, decides if a rule has been broken. See? Simple. Now, this new system sounds like a big step towards a fairer society, doesn't it? But, and this is a very important but, we have to ask, who actually got to participate? Who was considered a citizen with the right to vote? Well, the answer shows a very big problem with this new system. You see, the Constitution of 1791 divided the people of France into 2 groups. First, there were active citizens. To be an active citizen, you had to be a man, over 25 years old, and you had to pay taxes that were equal to at least 3 days of a laborer's wage. Only these men had the right to vote. Everyone else was called a passive citizen. This group included poorer men, all women, and of course children and young people under 25. They had some basic rights, but they had absolutely no right to vote. So in this new France, your political voice really depended on 2 things, your wealth and your gender. Let's just look at the numbers for a moment to understand what this really meant. At that time, France had a population of about 20 million people. Out of all those people, only about 4 million qualified as active citizens who could vote. Just think about that. Only 4 million out of 20 million people. So who was left out? A huge number of people. The poorest men in society, many of whom had fought for the revolution, had no voice. And, very importantly, all women were completely excluded from political rights. It didn't matter if a woman was rich or poor, educated or not, she could not vote. This new system was not a democracy for everyone. This unequal voting system was a major reason why many people were angry. But it wasn't the only problem. The other big issue was that the king, even with his limited powers, still had a lot of control, and this made many people very suspicious. The king was given a very powerful tool called the veto. This meant that even if the National Assembly worked hard and passed a law, the king could just say no and block it completely. People were worried that he would use this veto power to stop important changes and protect his own interests, which would undermine the entire revolution. And soon, voices of unhappiness grew louder. A revolutionary journalist, Jean-Paul Marat, captured this feeling perfectly. He wrote that the job of representing the people had been given only to the rich, and he believed that the lives of the poor would never get better through peaceful means alone. His words tell us just how disappointed many of the common people were. All of this dissatisfaction with the constitutional monarchy, it basically set the stage for the next, even more radical part of the revolution. Many people felt the revolution simply hadn't gone far enough. For them, just limiting the king's power was not the answer. They wanted to get rid of the monarchy completely. This timeline here shows just how quickly everything changed. The constitutional monarchy was set up in 1791, but it lasted for barely a year. By 1792, the king was in prison, and the monarchy was officially gone. And just a few months after that, in January 1793, King Louis XVI was executed, and France was declared a republic, a country with no king at all. And this brings us to our final important question for you to think about. The Constitution of 1791 was a big step in limiting the absolute power of a ruler. But is that enough? Can you call a country a democracy if the vast majority of its people are not allowed to participate in their own government? This is the very question that the French people themselves would soon answer, with even more revolutionary action.